Yo, what's going on, guys? Copy Dog here, back with another Overwatch League video. Today, like I said in yesterday's video, I'm going to be talking about the Boston Uprising and the LA Gladiators, two teams that should have done good last week, but they failed. So I'm going to talk about why they're doing bad and what they need to do to resolve it, like immediate resolutions. Obviously, maybe if they stick with their players, it might work out, but like, let's say LA Gladiators, for example, last year, they finished 4-6. They pick up Fissure, and then they do amazing. So, you know, I'm going to talk about replacements for the players that I think are underperforming to what their standards are supposed to be. So, yeah, let's just hop right into it. First team, the Boston Uprising. Glasses, no glasses, need a haircut. Whatever. Okay, let's just get into this, John. Boston Uprising. So, the Boston Uprising started their week really strong. 3-1 over Seoul Dynasty. I did predict that because I don't rate Seoul that high, but regardless, a big victory. Seoul was like 5th place in the standings at this time. And then they lost to Toronto Defiant. And it was a pretty bad defeat. I'm not going to say it was close. Like, it was somewhat close. But as we all know, Boston lost, and they shouldn't have. So, here is my biggest problem with Boston. I'm going to talk about each player individually and whether I think they are good or bad in the standards of GOATs and teams and like just their individual skill. So we're going to start with the support line. We're going to start with Kellex. Now, last year, Kellex was, I think, statistically the most dying Mercy, which is crazy considering he was on a top 3 team and the Dragons went 0-40. You'd think that the Dragons' Mercy was worse, but I heard somewhere that Kellex was the worst. If not the worst, he was definitely top 3 for the Mercy with the most deaths. And his Lucio play is a little bit better. I don't know about his in-game skills, like ult tracking and like, just ult tracking, which is what main supports mainly do, and shot calling as well. I don't know how good he is. I would think Alamo is a better Lucio. Like, he's impressed me a lot at the World Cup. It's probably communications issues, which is why he's not playing. But still, both good supports, I'd say. And Overwatch League standard, they definitely fit it. So I don't think the main support is a problem. Now let's talk about the flex support, Aim God. And holy cow, this kid is insane. If we want to talk about a rookie of the year already, I think Aim God would be one of them. Of course, yes, Aim God, he was in last season, yes. But he had like 6 hours of playtime, something like that. And obviously he was just a Neko shadow. And after Neko got released, Aim God was just like, it's my time to shine. And he has certainly shown so far. I think definitely the second best player on this team. Just a really mechanically skilled player. And I'm excited to watch him continue to grow as the season continues on. So now let's talk about the tanks. And we're going to start with the flex tank, Note, who I think is the best player on this team. And Note is just insane. Like, in-game wise, he can always see the openings of where the supports are and just target supports, which I don't know why a lot of divas don't do this specifically, or if we don't see it, we see Note doing it a lot. And that is really impressive to me. He just always finds those openings. Like against the Outlaws, he completely abused Raucus. And against the Seoul Dynasty, he completely abused Rio Jaehong. So, no, I definitely think is here to stay 100%. Let's talk about fusions. Now, I hyped this kid up a lot. After his World Cup performance, I was like, dang, Boston is actually really good at finding these hidden gems. Like they did it last season, they did it with fusions. They picked up fusions before the World Cup. Before the World Cup, because he did not play in the group stage of World Cup. He only played in the later parts of the World Cup, the top 8, and he outclassed Muma, he outclassed Fate in a way, and he definitely outclassed XQC in that Canada game. So fusions and his in-game shot calling, I hear he's just really vocal, which is really good for a main tank. So fusion's definitely here to stay. Axiom, I don't think they're going to play him that much. Of course, we only got to see a taste of him against the Dragons, but people need to realize that he didn't practice main tank at all. He was just practicing on the Zarya, which he really impressed me on. I'm going to just say it. As a main tank player, switching to a flex tank in like a short notice is pretty impressive. So I'm going to give it to Axiom. He might be good, but I think Fusion's is just going to be the starter just because he has that in-game role. So, yeah, Axiom, I think he's a good bench tank for sure. In case either Note gets sick, he can definitely flex onto that flex tank because he showed it to us. And then if Fusion gets sick, he can definitely do a main tank because I mean that's what he's been playing his whole career. So Axiom, definitely here to stay. Now let's talk about DPS. First off, for the flex DPS, we have Blase. Now, when I say flex DPS, these are mainly the Brigida players in the GOATs, and they're going to be like those Genjis, Pharas sort of players when it's no longer GOATs meta, which hopefully happens in Stage 2, because my god, am I tired of GOATs. Off topic. Anyway, Blase, he's definitely by no means the best or near the top, but he's been consistent with his play, which is average. So he's not dipping below average, and he's definitely not peaking above average. He's staying at that average, which is like, even if you're not a top player, being consistent, I think is better than having peaks, let's say with players like Pine or Taimu, players like that just have insane peaks, but they're not at that peak all the time. So Blase, I definitely want to see him more on those other roles than Brigida, because Brigidas, let's be honest, no matter what team you're on, Brigidas don't really shine as much as some of the other players that you can watch. Like, you can watch the Lucio and see if they're better or worse versus other Lucios compared to Brigida. So Blase, I won't put the blame on him necessarily. So I think that he's a good DPS. I would like to see more of him on other heroes before I judge whether he is a top tier or not. Now, the last DPS, the biggest problem for Boston Uprising has to be Color Hex. And my god, did he underperform against the Toronto Defiant. This guy like literally looked like a gold versus Grandmasters. It was kind of sad to watch. I'll throw some numbers up right here. I got a screenshot of Ivy's numbers compared to Color Hex's, and this just shows, and this isn't just this map, this is the entire game, even the map that Boston won pretty convincingly. It's like, dude, Color Hex is, I don't know if he's just not a good Zarya. We have players like Birdring or Effect, which are really good players, but they're just not meant for Zarya. I understand that, but they could at least play it to a certain level, and Color Hex definitely cannot play it to that level. And like, we haven't seen Color Hex on those other heroes, which maybe I'm too like jumping the gun immediately, but it's kind of questionable. And also they only have 2 DPS, so if one of them gets sick or suspended, wink wink, Color Hex, they don't have anyone to replace him. So I definitely feel like Color Hex is the biggest problem on this team. I feel like if they had a better main DPS, that they definitely would have beat the Toronto Defiant, and they will probably win the rest of their games of their season. But because of Color Hex and just maybe other factors in the team that I wouldn't be aware of, and neither would anyone else, I don't know. I don't know if Boston is going to win or not. So I am going to recommend some players that I think would be good in replacing Color Hex. And when I was thinking about this, the best person that came to mind was Logix. Now, Logix, he on the first season of Overwatch League, he was on the Florida Mayhem. And for a team that went 7-33, I think that's their record, something like that, he was definitely their best player. Maybe Manitin was better, but I would say Logix was definitely the better player. He was a really good tracer. Like, he definitely bloomed as the season went on, and his Widowmaker is really consistent as well, and so are his other heroes. And then he got dropped by Florida Mayhem, obviously, because they practically went full Korean, and he went to XL2 Academy, which is New York's academy team, and he played in the 3rd season of Contenders last year in NA, and they got to the semifinals. I think they lost to the Atlanta. Yeah, they lost to Atlanta Academy, and he looked phenomenal as Zarya, and I already know that his other heroes are super good. So I feel like Logix would be a really good replacement for Color Hex, if not a backup for Color Hex, if Color Hex is just that good, but we don't know yet. Another player I'm going to recommend is Snillo. Yes, he is on a team right now, but he's on a 2-way, and I'm sure a player like Snillo of his caliber deserves to be on a higher tier Overwatch League team. He played for Fusion University last season of Contenders and this season of Contenders, and he's been looking really hot on that Zarya, and his tracer is super good. Statistically was the best tracer of last season, and his Widowmaker is also, it's pretty decent, not like nothing to write home about, but definitely good. And then there's like other contenders players that you can throw in there for Korea or whatever, but those two, like Boston, they're not really the full Korean team, so they definitely like their international roster. And I think Logix is Swedish or German or something like that, and they don't have one of those on their team, so it'd work good for them. And then also Snillo is, I think Snillo is Swedish, so that would definitely. Oh my gosh, what happened? Oh, it got like so much brighter. Wow. Okay, well it got brighter. Whatever. So yeah, Snillo would also be definitely a good player for Color Hex's replacement. So that's the Boston Uprising. I'm gonna give Color Hex a little bit of time. Maybe I'm jumping the gun right now, but like I think Color Hex needs to be definitely replaced, if not have a backup that's good enough to replace him, such as Logix or Color Hex. So those are my recommendations. Take them with a grain of salt. Maybe leave other players in the comments that you would like to see on Boston Uprising replace Color Hex, because there's a lot of talent out there that can easily replace Color Hex that are arguably better than him on that Zarya and possibly on other heroes. We'll just have to wait and see. So that is the Boston Uprising. The next team, the Los Angeles Gladiators. Give me a second. Oh. Oh, that's right. LA Gladiators. LA Gladiators. Ooh, we poppin'. Now, before anyone says, oh, you're just a Gladiators hater, whatnot, check this out. Boom, I got their jersey. I got their hat. Ugh. Look at, I got their signatures. I got like Surefours, remixes. He's not on the team anymore. Neither is Silk Thread. I got Hydrations up like there. And then I got D-Pay, the coach. D-Pay is a pretty cool guy. Shout out to him. And so Surefour. Maybe I'll talk about that event in the future. I went to the LA Gladiators event. Like they had like a sponsorship with the Rams, and we got to play with the Rams player, and I got to play with I played on Remix's team, I think. No, yeah. I also teabagged Surefour. That was pretty cool. Maybe I'll talk about that in the future, but yeah, I'm an LA Gladiators fan, so before you say anything, this is my favorite team, and I'm just showing passionate love for them. So let's rip right into them. I'm just gonna keep this shirt on. I don't even care. So, Los Angeles Gladiators, again, we are going to start from the top, go our way down, and talk about each individual player. First player, main support, Big Goose. Now, it hurts to say, but I have not been impressed with Big Goose so far. This guy was supposed to be the godlike Lucio everyone talks about, and like for kill-wise, he's a really good killing Lucio, and the speediest Lucio. I think that was the statistic that they said in the broadcast or something like that. But that doesn't matter if you are one of the Lucios that dies the most. I think he was 19th or 20th or something absurd like that. And that's crazy. He's getting separated from his team. He's getting picked off, and it's not good whatsoever for the LA Gladiators. When they picked up Reaper, I know he's a flex support, but when they picked up Reaper, I was super confused because I felt like Big Goose was the player that needed that backup in case he was underperforming, which in my opinion, he definitely is that player on that team that is underperforming. So we'll talk about some replacements for Big Goose. I don't think he needs to be replaced by any means. I still think he's good, but I think that the either coaches need to like work with him, or they need to get a backup just to fill in for him when he's like having those bad off days and just underperforming. So yeah, we're going to talk about replacements later after I'm done talking about each individual player on the Boston Uprising or on the LA Gladiators. Anyways, next one, flex support. We have Shaz and Reaper. I talked about Reaper. He's a good backup flex support. By no means like we haven't seen him yet. Of course, he's a godlike Ana, according to what people say, but you know, not by any means like he's definitely like a good backup flex support to Shaz, who in my opinion is the best player on this team. He is definitely like the most consistent. He is really good with his ult management, and I'm super impressed by Shaz. I always was. I think he's the best, one of the best Western flex supports, and definitely one of the top ones up there. He's just like, he's like not breaking the best, but my God, he is a really consistent flex support, and his consistency is very high. So I have a big respect for Shaz. He's definitely one of the best players right now on this team, which is looking really grim being at a 1-4 record. So tanks, flex tank, Void, and Bishu. Now, Void statistically is a really good diva, which I'll give it to him. He is. But I feel like they still should be running Bishu simply because of translation issues. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about Roar. But Bishu, like when Fissure joined the team last year, Bishu was in-game translating, and that was helping them a lot communication-wise, which when you watch this team, you can definitely see that there's communication problems with players, like mainly the Koreans, like not to be like mean or anything, but the Koreans being caught off separate, not Void, because Void's English is better than Roar's and Decay's, but you can definitely see when you watch the games that Roar and Decay are more caught out of position more than the other two players, and Bijou, I feel like, was that gap from Fissure and the team that helped them so much last season, which I feel like should help him this season. So while I do like seeing Void on the team, and I think he is a good player, they should be running Bishu because of communication. Which now we're going to talk about the main tank, Roar, who I am not impressed with whatsoever. Of course, when you're replacing Fissure, arguably a top player on this team, you're going to be like, yeah, no one could replace Fissure. Fissure's the problem, or getting rid of Fissure was the problem and stuff. No, I don't think getting rid of Fissure was the problem at all. I think that was a good thing that they got rid of Fissure. He didn't even want to play on the team to begin with when he got transferred and signed. And the LA Gladiators promised to transfer him to a full Korean team after the season, and they kept that promise. So nothing but respect to the Gladiators. While I liked seeing Fissure on this team, I definitely understand his wants and his needs, and those can be fulfilled because he wants them to. So I definitely respect Fissure and the Gladiators for separating. They didn't want to play together in the first place, or the Gladiators wanted Fissure, but Fissure didn't want to play for the Gladiators. So definitely that was a good thing. But the replacement, like right now, Roar, his skill, like undeniable. Like he does look like a good Reinhardt player, but he is not what Fissure was. And what I mean by that is, and in some cases, it's maybe too early to say. Let's say, like in 5 months, Roar is better than Fissure, right? I could still see Roar being better than Fissure, and seeing this team go like 8-20 or something like something absurd, something that LA Gladiators should not be doing, because Fissure brought that leadership, brought that that. What's the word? He brought the passion into the team, though, the hard work into the team, which they did not have before. He brought the structure. I hit my mic. He brought the structure, and that is something that Roar has not brought yet, and that's something I don't think that he can bring. So they definitely need to find, if not a main tank, they definitely need to find someone that can bring that, because if that is not brought, we're going to see the first stage of last season's LA Gladiators, which was a 4-6. So I think they're going to go 2-5, maybe 3-4. I don't think they're going to be Atlanta Reign. Just saying that here. But I want them to be Atlanta Reign, of course, but I don't think they will. They definitely need to find someone to replace Fissure's not necessarily role in game, but the role outside of the game and in comms, because they desperately need that right now. I think they are lost. So that rest of the players, Hydration, Decay, I'm super impressed by Decay. He had a great debut. Unfortunately, they lost, and then they lost the game after that to the Spark. But he looks really good, and he looks like he has promise. Sure for. Just don't think he's the Zarya player. He's kind of like the same boat as Effect and Birdring. Good player, but it's just not their meta. Hydration has been doing good under Begita. We also know he's an insanely flexible player. So I think the biggest problem right now is Big Goose, and then just not having the presence of Fissure, if that makes sense. They don't need Fissure as a main tank, because Roar is a good main tank, but they need someone to fill that void, which I honestly would have no idea who could. One recommendation I do have is Custa. And I mean, he's not being used on the LA Valiant. He's for some reason, Kuki's playing over him, which I can understand. Maybe Kuki might look like a better. I haven't been able to watch a lot of LA Valiant's games. Of course, they keep losing him. But Custa, he did boost that LA Valiant team when he did join, and I feel like he could definitely boost the LA Gladiators because he might be a player that can bring that fissure into the team, and also he is a really good main support. He was good at ult tracking and stuff like that. Maybe Harry Hook as just a main support, maybe not the fissure part, but Harry Hook is a good support as well. Elk from the Fusion, again on a 2-way contract, but he's a good player. He might be worth getting. Car as well, who is also on Fusion University. He looked really good in contenders. Of course, it's just contenders, and you can never say, but he looks like he has promise. So those were definitely some players that I would recommend. Of course, there's a bunch of other main supports out there, but I don't think they need a main support, or probably I think that would be the void to get filled, but they need a player to bring the fissure. I'm going to call it the fissure effect. They need someone to bring the fissure effect. So that's all I have for you today. If you did enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe. Video coming out tomorrow, which is going to be about the 2 teams that rose up the highest in ranks and the 2 teams that dropped the lowest, why they did what they did, and then I'm going to give my predictions for the Thursday matches. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.